Thank you so much for joining us for this Patreon episode of the Dukes of Dice. I am joined by the illustrious Mike Selinker, president of Loan Shark Games, and a pretty well-known designer, not just in the board game space, but also outside of board games as well. Mike, how are you?
I am good. I am apparently illustrious.
Illustrious. I like that word. Are you all right with that one?
Word. No, it's good. It means I have been illustrated.
Yeah.
Is that what it means? I have been. I have been illustrated, actually. I've been illustrated by John Kovalik and Len Peralta and Stan and just all sorts of other artists. So even if I were to disappear this moment, there would be cartoon images of me in Penny Arcade and all that to entertain the world forever.
The one I know is Five Finger Selinker. That's the one I know at the moment.
Five Finger Selinker.
Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind. Anyway, Mike, for folks who don't know, I don't know if you'd mind giving it at least some sort of a summary. I know there's a long history to go over, but you've had your hands in a lot of things.
I've had my hands in a lot of things. I used to do a lot of Dungeons & Dragons stuff. I was a creative director on 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons and did a lot of writing for that and other RPGs. I also did a lot of trading card game stuff for Wizards of the Coast. I worked on Magic, and I was the creative director on Harry Potter and lots of other things like that. And then I started to make lots of board games. I did Risk Godstorm and Betrayal at House on the Hill, and later Unspeakable Words and Lords of Vegas and so forth. Recently, I did a game called the Pathfinder adventure card game that did pretty well, and then since then we've been making things like we've been making a new game called Apocrypha, another game called The Ninth World, and our sort of recently caused celeb the Thornwatch line with Penny Arcade. It's been a set of things. I also write books and such. I did a puzzle novel called The Maze of Games, and I've written books on how to make games and puzzles, and just done a lot of puzzle stuff and such. So all that stuff, that's what I do. And by the way, I'm the president of Loan Shark Games, which is a small company out in Seattle.
And that was the brief version, folks. That was the brief version.
Oh my God! Yes, I have done a lot of things, and at one point in a project, somebody said put together a CV, and I was like, a CV? We do that still? Why don't we just Google, folks?
Yeah, easy enough to do, or Board Game Geek. There's a profile there. Take your pick, really.
It's true.
So with Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, that's where I want to start, because this is one that is in my top 10 games of all time.
Woo!
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. The feel of it is so many great memories with it. What was the process that went into that? I mean, how did you what's the origin story behind this one?
Oh, Pathfinder came from a desire, as I've always had, to solve the cooperative game problem, the problem of one person running the table and it not being as exciting as a competitive game. So I'd sort of done some work on that with Betrayal at House on the Hill, and wanted to keep doing it. A friend of mine named Ryan Sand came to me, and we had some similar ideas, and he had some mechanical inspiration, and we sort of knocked that out with my colleagues, Chad Brown and Gabby Weidling and Paul Peterson and Tanis O'Connor, and then we took it to Paizo, and they went, oh my God, we need to make this a Pathfinder game. And so we did, and it was fun. We're now in our 4th big box base set with probably like 100 things that you can buy from it. That's not an exaggeration. Dozens and dozens of tables of it at Gen Con, and just, I mean, it's been one of those grind it out, build something great moments that I think has produced something that people really enjoy.
What do you think it is about it? Is there anything inherent in the design and the experience that you think really spoke to people? I mean, what do you think was responsible for the game's success in your eyes?
Well, it doesn't hurt to have the Pathfinder intellectual property. Those guys are great. They make really good stories, and that helps a lot. But the game is uniquely suited to storytelling. It's uniquely suited to the rhythm of how stories come together. There's an element of a timer to it that's sort of pretty well balanced against the rest of the pace of the game, and there's investigation, and there's accumulation of objects over time, and there's self-interest, and there's group interest, and all that stuff sort of melds together to be something that we really didn't know what to call it. I mean, adventure card game is just a made-up phrase, but now there's like a half dozen or a dozen of them. So we think we might have started a game genre, which is pretty cool.
Now, I want to get to the new set here in a little bit, but my co-host Sean posted on the Guild asking, and more pleading than anything, is there going to be an advanced character set, and would you please just sit down and design it pretty please? That's not exactly how he phrased it, but somewhere close to that. It's
not really a question so much as an extortion.
Yeah, well, I mean...
yeah, well, we certainly talked about it, right? I mean, it's like the kind of thing that people have really wanted us to do, but we're just having fun exploring the space of what the game can do. I mean, everything we do is meant to just capitalize on some crazy idea that we just had, and so we're just going to keep plugging at it. The Goblin decks that we did recently were just one of those sort of things where we said, we think we know how to make something really clever here. Let's see if we can entertain folks with it. And then, so yeah, I mean, obviously there are certain types of products that people have been asking us for a long time, and we're going to keep trying to make those as best as we can. But yes, I appreciate the enthusiasm.
So I'll take that as a not anytime soon.
You can take it as I have considered this option and may continue to explore that option at its due time.
Fair enough. What is the core idea? Because you mentioned a lot of these come from, hey, we just had this cool idea, let's put it into this game, into this form. With this fourth base set, what is that cool idea? What is that hook that you're hoping fans of this game are really going to dig?
Well, there was the name of the set's Mummy's Mask, and we built it around this really unique environment that Pathfinder had created. It's a set of tombs that are kind of open to tomb raiders to rent out, right? Like you go in and you win this lottery, and you get to try to explore the tombs where all these undead are and so forth. So it's kind of like a weird murder theme park, right? And so we're like, wow, that would create all sorts of very interesting ecosystems. So we decided to make a set about precision, doing exactly what you want to do and not overshooting your marks and not disrupting things, but still getting as much as you can out of it. And then at the end of it, we do something in the game that you've never been able to do in Pathfinder, which is you take your stuff out of the tombs and then you can sell it.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a whole system of traders and merchants that sort of gloms on top of it and allows you to try to make the best character you can for your foray back into the tombs. And so, yeah, we built a system where what you bring out is really important because, like sometimes in Pathfinder you get that thing and you're just like, yeah, that's not for me. I don't care. I'm just going to throw it away at the end. And it just sort of serves as a hit point, essentially, for the rest of the game. Well, now you're going to care. Now you're going to care about whatever you get and what you can do with it. Anyway, so that's sort of it. I mean, there's also a lot of new cool mechanics in it that are sort of more subtle than that. There's lots of new things we did with armor and There's a mechanic about examining cards called trigger, which is sometimes really good for you and sometimes really bad for you, and just all sorts of cool things. But it's all built around that crazy undead exploration house that really is kind of unique in all of role playing.
Interesting. I'm excited for it, and unfortunately, with the review schedule, we don't get in as much Pathfinder as we'd like to. We started, and boy, I'm kicking myself now. The third set, not too long ago.
You started on Wrath?
Yes, we did. Yeah, and
you got a ways to go. That thing is built around the principle that it will kick your ass for a while.
Oh yeah. Scenario 2, we got a little too greedy. I think we were just a bit too rusty, and all of a sudden that timer creeps up on you, and uh-oh.
Yeah, it's every set is really different. Each set has sort of ended up reflecting the personality of one of the game designers on the team. So the sort of methodical set, which was Chad's, and the crazy swashbuckling set, that was Gabby's, and the power your way through all the demons of the abyss set was Paul, and now Mummy's Mask reflects the sort of weird sense of humor that Liz has, and each one sort of feels like a different game, even though they're all completely intercompatible, and that's a pretty good place to be.
Very, very cool. I want to switch gears a little bit because we did get a couple of questions. This one came from Patrick Hillier on Lords of Vegas, and this one is one of his top 10 games of all time, and certainly one that's I know. See, isn't that you're making all sorts of lists here?
Okay. So all questions by somebody who thinks one of our games is one of the best 10 of all time.
That's right.
I'm in favor of those.
Yeah. Well, I've been cherry picking so far. We didn't get any haters on the guild. I'll put it that way.
I think your games are among the 10 worst of all time. And right. I was wondering if you could explain yourself.
I was wondering why you're so bad.
Why are you so bad? Yeah, exactly. No, go ahead. What's the question?
So he was asking about. Did you have a Vegas gaming background of any kind, or were you a Vegas fanatic or someone who liked to go there that inspired or impacted that game at all? Was that more James's contribution, James Ernest, the co-designer on it? That was his question.
Yeah, Patrick's question is a good one. We kind of came at it. I don't remember which of us saw. I think I saw an article. Maybe James saw the article. I can't remember. Which talked about Las Vegas casinos and how they were obsolete like 15 years after they were built, which is an incredibly fast period of time for a building that costs $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh man, can we make a game out of like casinos that start to lose value as soon as you put them on the board? And James came up with we go to Vegas all the time, and so James came up with the idea of a sort of Chinatown acquire-like board, but the track around the outside, the big scoring system, would sort of bleed numbers out of it along the way, and so your initial thing where you're like, oh goody, I got a point, all of a sudden is like, you don't get any points for that thing. You have to expand it. So that's sort of where it came from. James also is definitely responsible for basically coming to me one day and said, what if this game had a lot of dice in it? And I said, define a lot. He said, more than 40. And I said, that's a lot. And I don't think anybody had done that with a board game to that point, right? So when we roll up in some, we're trying to sell the game, and roll up in some game companies are like, oh, what if there were like 5 dice in the game? Like, nope, moving on. But Mayfair said, sure, we can make dice. Geez, anybody can make dice. And it really, really took off from there. It's certainly the best Euro game that I have been associated with, and I think James still feels that way too. So, although I will say that TAC is certainly his new belle of the ball, and as abstract strategy games go, you're not going to really beat that.
I want to get to Sean's other question, and this is more talking about the publishing side of things. And Sean was curious about the differences that you found working as your own publishing company versus when you do your work with other publishers.
It's a very different world. And the thing is, it's not like we made a hard switch where we're like, okay, we're working for other people. Okay, now we're just going to do our own games. Because that transition is not quick. And so what it turns out is that other companies are, we've got the same design team, right? But we just do not have the infrastructure that a lot of other companies have. We do not have the expertise in a lot of areas that we are learning as quickly as we possibly can. And so, things that would be easy for a company like Wizards or like Paizo or like Mayfair, we're struggling with, and we're trying to figure it out. Like we're learning as we go. But there are some other things that are fantastic. I mean, so I love Pathfinder. It's one of my favorite games. I think it's decent chance it's the best game I've ever designed. The intellectual property that Paizo brought us was brilliant. I mean, it's got thousands of pieces of art, and it's got hundreds of stories, and none of them are ours, right? I mean, with Apocrypha and with Thornwatch, we're making the stories. We're making the art. We're making the direction that we're doing. Now, we're still doing other people's stuff. So, like the Ninth World, we're helping Monty Cook Games out with a board game about the Numenera universe, and we're expanding their universe, and that's great. But we really feel like there's a true opportunity to make something that we're really attached to. And so we think of Apocrypha as kind of our magnum opus. It's probably not going to be the most popular game we ever produced. It's probably not going to be the most well-known game we've ever produced. But it's going to be the one that we poured more blood and sweat into than any other game. And so yeah, I think it's cool. That said, I mean, when Wizards came to us and said, we really want to do an expansion to Betrayal at House on the Hill, can we please... What would it take to get you guys to do it? And we just said, sure, why not? That's fun. And it was. So, yeah, it's different. It's certainly different running your own Kickstarters.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a totally different world. And it's gotten us a lot closer to our fans in very positive ways and sometimes more challenging ways. So, but yeah, it's cool. We had a booth at Gen Con for the first time ever, and it was packed the whole time, and it was great. So yeah, it's good. It's good. But yeah, I don't know if I ever want to be fully one or the other. I think it's nice to have situations like I hope the Pathfinder game goes on forever, right? I mean, like if every year we have to knock something out for that, that's not going to be the worst thing in the world, right? So
no doubt.
It's been really great to get back into Betrayal at House on the Hill, but something really special about creating your own thing or creating a thing with a group of friends, as we're doing with Penny Arcade, that needs tender, loving care is pretty amazing too.
What is it that you think is the most misunderstood piece or part of publishing that a typical gamer might have, that a typical gamer just doesn't get because they're not involved on the business side of it?
They do not understand that there isn't simply one way that things get done. They look at it and they go, okay, how... I went to the store and I bought this game from this small company. I went to the store and I bought this game from this big company. And they weigh about the same, and they rattle about the same, and they've got good... So they probably took the same path to getting created. And it's just not true. A company like Hasbro that makes Wizards of the Coast stuff has the ability to get whatever printing times they want on printing presses. They control their shipments. They have an ability to manage the world in ways that a small company simply cannot do. And so when players come to us and said, well, I bought this game and it was this, why is your game from the small company not like that? Why is it cheap? Why is it more expensive? Why does it not have, this rather than that? We sometimes say, look, that game sold 180,000 copies. And thus, the reason it's $25 is because it costs a lot less, right? This game sold 10,000 copies. It costs a lot more, right? And so there's sort of a sense that games just happen in a very traditional way. And I cannot tell you how many times people have told me on Kickstarter they know exactly what should happen in the process, when I've been doing this for 20 years and I don't know what's supposed to happen, right? So yeah, it's certainly a different, a sense that if you buy a game, you know everything about making a game is probably oversimplifying it, but we run into that all the time. We sometimes have to say, no, actually, it doesn't work like that. We'll do what we can to make it so that it is the best for you, and I hope that you understand how we got there, right? So anyway, that's sort of it. I don't mean to be negative, obviously. I love it when people think, they can be involved in our processes and learn about what we're doing, but it's a very different world than people think it is.
Well, it's interesting, especially when I look at another project you were involved in very heavily, Tabletop Deathmatch.
Yes.
And I try and look for some titles. Obviously came out, Penny Press people saw, but from the most recent season, and I was just doing a quick bit of research on Board Game Geek. For instance, Bad Detectives, self-published. A number of those other titles, either self-published or not major distribution, didn't get a lot of traction. Do you know what happened with a lot of that?
I mean, I think it's unique to every single situation, right? Penny Press was ushered out by the fine folks at Asmati Games. They came in and said, hey, this is a great game. We want to be involved in making it. And they made it, and it was fantastic, right? They helped the originators put it out, and it went really well. Discount Salmon is quite a success in its way. They are in what I have now called the most successful game genre of all time, which is real-time salmon games.
Ah, yes.
With Discount Salmon and Happy Salmon being the only two representatives in that genre, and both being fantastic. So sometimes it goes really well, and then other times the creator puts it out, and there's some success, like Bad Detectives or Bruin USA, and sometimes just not as much, right? And so, but I think, it's hard to actually succeed at this job, especially if you're the only one doing all the jobs. My company is 12 people, and we struggle on a daily basis to try to get things done. I can't imagine what it would be like. Well, I can't imagine what it's like. Liz Spain, one of my co-designers, and her husband Austin, made Incredible Expeditions, and they got a great, beautiful game out. It's a fantastic playing game, and it's really hard for them to do that by themselves. So, yeah, I think you can sort of look at this as the Tabletop Deathmatch isn't the real competition, right? The real competition is, can you actually manage to get a game into the marketplace and have some penetration with it? But I do like all those games, and I really think that, the best of them, Penny Press, Discount Salmon, Bruin USA, those are solid games that people should try.
And unfortunately, many didn't end up doing it. Do you know? Is there going to be a season 3 of Tabletop Deathmatch? Or, do you know?
I don't know. We do so much stuff with Cards Against Humanity, but they are, what's the best word? Mercurial. They do not march to anybody's drum but their own, and so we are always at the ready to do whatever crazy thing they would like us to help with, and if it turns out to be a new season of Deathmatch, that would be great, and if it turns out to be something else, that's pretty cool too.
All right, I want to stick with in kind of in the publishing world here, and Tim Vernig had a question on the Guild. He, by the way, does not list any games in the top 10, so I can't tell you whether or not any of your games are in his top 10 or not. But
I'm not feeling this question, but go ahead.
We'll see how it goes. All right.
Okay.
So his question is, and I'll read it directly. What are your thoughts on the shrinking of the game publishing market, at least in the U.S.? It seems that smaller independent companies are being absorbed by larger companies at a fast rate. How do you think this is going to affect the smaller independent game designers? And I think the big one he's really asking about is Asmodee.
I think that all activity benefits the market leaders. That is, all activity in a market space benefits the market leaders. So when there is a boom in small press games, the market leaders profit by people finding their way to their games, and so that just gives them more cash to throw around, and sometimes that cash is used to buy companies that have been succeeding, and so I think it's totally predictable and just fine. I worked for a company that was the undisputed king of the marketplace, and so at Wizards of the Coast, we changed how things worked, and other people want that. It's funny with Asmodee, right? I mean, they bought Fantasy Flight, and Fantasy Flight became most of the company, right? Because there were more people working for Fantasy Flight than there were for Asmodee, right? So, I think it works. If it works for them, it's great. So far, no one has shown up with a giant truck full of money to Loan Shark Games, so I think we'll just keep on keeping on being our plucky little self. And but the thing is, I guess the really important thing is, despite what I said before about it is actually harder to be a small company because you can't control your press times, you can't control distribution and stuff like that. We don't fear anybody. Like, this isn't an environment where being a small company is scary. Like, we come in and we're just like, yeah, we've got the best game. Does anybody want it? And people do. Like, there's no, stigma to being small. There's no a challenge to being small other than, you have to make sure you get your booth order in early and stuff like that. It's just that people are interested in good games. It's a meritocracy. And that was really proven at Gen Con. People could have spent all their time at the Fantasy Flight booth. I'm sorry, at the Asmodee booth, but they came over to us too.
And how much of that has changed? Obviously, you've been in the industry a very long time. Was it always a meritocracy? Is this more of a meritocracy now than it had been in decades past?
Well, I think in the board game side, it's absolutely a lot more of a meritocracy than it had been in the decades past. I mean, there was a time when small press really did mean no press at all, and now, no, I think it's huge. I think that the rise of Rio Grande and Mayfair, both of whom have gone through their own elements of acquisition, companies like Days of Wonder and all that, they really blazed a trail of we can do things on a small staff with very clever games and so forth. And now we're seeing a trend toward toward those companies being part of larger companies. But the games now, since 1995, those drive it. The games and the authors of the games. I am in no danger of being swamped by anyone because I have a good name and a good reputation and a great staff, which I would take against any other design department in the game industry. And I don't say that like I'm cocky about it. I mean that my staff is just simply that good. And there are not a lot of companies that are like that. There's not a lot of companies that are really putting in the design time to make really great games. And so that's why it's a meritocracy. I mean, we worked on Pathfinder for 4 years, and we were rewarded with the success of having done that rather than just throwing something out there. So yeah, I think it's fairly new in the sense of geologic time, but in the board game side, very much so. And I think it's true on the video game side. I think it's true in a lot of other places.
Knowing that it is more of a meritocracy now in your eyes, has that changed the way that you approach a design of a board game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I left Wizards of the Coast was I wasn't able to make games in the way I wanted to make them. Not that I don't love them, but I needed a different way to do things. And so now, I mean, I built it around a brutal pit of a design crew, right? I mean, we are merciless on each other's designs because we do not have the financial freedom to screw up. We go in there with, we make sure that everything is as close to perfect as we can make it, and just straight out genius if we can manage it. And so our approach is not, oh my God, let's put out, oh, this game sounds nice, let's just put it out. That's not us. I mean, every time we got to make something that nobody's ever seen before. And so far we've done that, I think. I mean, other people will be the judge of that, but we are hardcore innovators. And it starts with me, but it is definitely not limited to me because, you know, our team has Rodney Thompson, who did Lords of Waterdeep. It has Paul Peterson, who did Smash Up. It has the entire Pathfinder adventure card game crew. I mean, it's a pretty tough crew to beat, and the reason we succeed is because we do not ever say to each other, well, you're right because of who you are. We say, you're only right if you're actually right.
I'd like to ask you more about Apocrypha, The Ninth World, and Thornwatch, but the one question we got on the Guild was from another game that you guys are working on.
Yeah, I know where this goes.
Sausage Party.
Yeah.
When is this coming out? And, well, even before that, where did this come from?
Yeah. Hell? It's basically.
And it's not based on the movie, right? I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it was a complete surprise that there was a movie of that name. So, Paul and Storm are friends of mine. They're internet musicians of somewhat legendary fame, and they did a show called Learning Town, which is this troubling show where they take over a kid's, Sesame Street-like show, and all sorts of horrible stuff ensues. And they did a song on it called Sausage Party, which was about, these puppets playing around with sausages, and it's shocking in its brilliance. So they played that. There was a show. We were at a show called PAX East, and they played the song at the beginning of the show, and I went, "Oh, I really like this song. It's got a nice list of using sausage names in it, and I think you can make a really good game out of that. Like, what happens if you were like trying to grill sausages and but it was really fast, and you were sometimes putting sausages on each other's grills. And I started thinking about this, and I paid no attention to the rest of the concert. I just designed the game all the way through it. Well, what I didn't know was that there was a camera pointed at the front row where I was in, and the video of this concert shows the crowd having a great time, and I could not be less interested in what is going on stage. Right? I am not laughing, I am not applauding, I am not dancing, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just sitting there with my hand on my chin going, I don't know, maybe something like this. And so I saw the guys afterwards. They said, Mike, come backstage, let's talk. I was like, no, I'm working on a thing. I'll see you guys in the morning. And I showed up in the morning with the game fully done.
Wow.
And I said, let's play this. And they were like, this is amazing. When did you write this? And I was like, well, I started about 8 p.m. last night. And so it's super fun. It's a real-time game where you got to make sausages of the exact right length, and sausages don't matter unless they get into buns, and there are no double entendres in it whatsoever.
Of course not.
And it's super fun. Everybody loves it. It's dumb. Like I was playing it with a really unique group. I was playing it at Gen Con at my booth. Let's see, we had Max Temkin from Cards Against Humanity, and Tommy from Secret Hitler, and Chris Funk from the rock band The Decemberists. And we were all around this table playing this game. And Max looks at me as he's playing it, and he goes, Mike, this game is really, really stupid. But in this bright, smiling way that only a creator of Cards Against Humanity can say that, right? And he was just like, this is genius, stupid level, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a fun little game. I think I don't mean to put this negatively, but we have some bigger games to get out first.
All right.
Right. Like, we could put out Sausage Party today, right? We could probably have it in our hands in a month, right? But I think the backers of Apocrypha and the Ninth World would like us to finish those games first. So we'll get it out shortly after those.
You're going to miss the boat on the movie tie-in, though.
Actually, I'm really happy to miss that boat. I don't want anybody thinking I'm profiting off their movie. But we had it first. There you go. So
nice. Have you seen that movie, by the way? It is downright strange.
I imagine it is. It looks very bizarre. The talking buns are really hard to watch, because they talk like from side to side, not top one down, right? So, but yes, I approve of it. So, but I approve of a lot of things. So,
Fair enough. Well, let's talk about some of the other products as well coming out, because as you mentioned, you have some bigger fish to fry or bigger sausages to cook. I don't know.
To grill, yeah.
Yeah, take your pick. So what about Apocrypha? I mean, what is it that sets this one apart for folks who aren't too familiar with it?
Sure.
When you compare to other adventure card games like, say, Pathfinder.
Other adventure card games. That phrase is such a weird thing.
I know. But it is a thing now.
Yeah, no, there's a Warhammer one. There's a Goonies one. Did you know that? There's a Goonies adventure card game. It's like, yeah, and somebody was like, you needed to trademark that. Otherwise, other people would use it. I'm like, I'm thrilled that other people would use it. Why would I want to stop them? Right? Why would I want people not to copy what it is we're doing, right? We're good enough to make our own games. It's cool. So Apocrypha is a game that's set in the modern day, and by that I mean it is always the day you are playing it on, which will turn out to be quite meaningful.
Okay.
The activity that we're going to do is just keep. It's gonna change from day to day. The general concept is the world is filled with monsters, but nobody can see them because of a thing called the paradigm, which sort of clouds everybody's vision and warps reality. But you can see them, and they're pretty much fully aware of that. And so you're what's called a saint. The saints are this sort of vaguely superpowered group of people that actually are quite powerful and could probably go toe-to-toe with all of these monsters and strange forces, except they have forgotten everything about who they are. And so the primary method of the game, in addition to the sort of adventure card game mechanic of you pick up some stuff along the way as you explore and that, build a deck of cards that you play with, is you actually build your brain. You start with a character card in the center of a 3x3 array and just that. And then over time you get these things called fragments, these fragmented memories that have these great pieces of text by the best authors in the world, Patrick Rothfuss and Jerry Holkins and Aaron Evans and Kids Johnson and just a murderer's row of people like that. And they were all told, write us fragmentary stories that we can design game mechanics around. So you might suddenly remember, because of Jerry Holkins' story, that your arms detach, which is a strange thing to suddenly realize. And then, so that's a strange story, but what does it mean in the game? Well, it means that you actually get an extra hand of cards that you must use immediately when you want to use it, right? And so all these game mechanics are flooding in from these stories that people wrote for us. And we built upon this environment an incredibly deep story. It's nonlinear. There are 99 different scenarios in the game, and they're all about all the chapters are broken up by different kinds of creatures. So there's a chapter on street gang lycanthropes in Chicago, and everything's set in a real place. There's a chapter on the golems that sort of are behind the scenes in tech mad Seattle, and then there's another one that there's an oil town up in Alberta that is being plagued by the deathless, coming up through a portal through an oil well to the realm of the death goddess Ereshkigal, and so forth and so on. This is really deep tapestry. You can pop around. You can go to. There's an element of this game where at various points in the game you're just going to say, "Screw it, I want to go to Vegas," because Vegas is sort of a place where you go in this game where there's that's where all the demons and angels style creatures live, and sometimes you can get what you want when you go to Vegas. And so anyway, it's a deep, rich game. It's got over 100 pages of story material in it. It's got story and rule material in it. It's got 1,400 cards. It's got it's got 20 dice in it. It's a big game, and it's the kind of game that I think people will want to not only own because it is really fun to play, but it is, I think, extremely well written and illustrated. It's got like 600 pieces of art in it, and I'm very proud of it. It's almost done, and I can't wait to get it into the hands of some people who have shown incredible patience with us in the process of getting it out.
When I heard 1,400 cards,
yeah, it's big.
My jaw kind of dropped a little bit because I remember trying to count the number of cards in Millennium Blades and being impressed with that count in that game. Have you played Millennium Blades yet? Yeah. I 1,400.
That's a lot. Wow. The whole game is a deep dive. You will find things in it every time you play that you have not seen before. Every card has flavor text on it. Every illustration has stuff going on in the background. Some of our cards have the same illustration on both sides, except there are subtle differences between the two sides. The goal is to create something that is rich and deep and mysterious and has that sense like when you buy a really rich role-playing game. That's the other thing about the game. I've sort of buried the lead. The game can be played against the game, like the Pathfinder Adventure card game, or it can be played as a full role-playing game. And you can jump right back and forth between the two from session to session, playing the same characters. There's no difference in how the game. You don't have to, house rule anything. It's pretty great, and that's one of the best achievements we've ever had as a game company, is being able to create a game that is going to satisfy both role-playing game players and card game players.
You mentioned it's almost done. When would you expect that one to be in folks' hands?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I hope that we're done with it in about a month or two, and then roll a die. We just don't know, right? I mean, like we say to our printer, here are our files, and then we just start hoping like everybody else. And people don't like that answer. They think I've got more power in the game industry than I actually have, right? But the answer is, we'll do our part to get it done as quickly as we can and as best as we can, and then the rest of it is kind of up to fates that we don't control.
I think you need to convene the Shadow Council that runs the entire board gaming industry and get them on that.
Yeah, no, I know that Shadow Council. I know everybody on it. I just don't seem to be able to get a meeting together because we're all, out playing Pokemon Go all the time.
Oh, well, I mean, who isn't, obviously?
Yeah. So, it's really hard to get a meeting these days.
I wanted to bounce a little bit outside of the board gaming spectrum for a little bit here. And this one came from Chris Schreiber. Chris was wondering if you could briefly share your thoughts on the controversies we saw within the crossword community,
sure,
specifically the ones referencing USA Today and UClick. And my understanding is you guys ultimately went with a boycott, was kind of how you guys ended up handling this. Yeah.
So the good thing about this story is that, we got a little bit of criticism from folks, and fairly so, I think, about trying to make this about one person, but it wasn't. It was about sort of the integrity of the industry. So there's this guy named Timothy Parker. He was the editor of the Universal UClick Syndicate crossword and the USA Today crossword puzzle, which are two of the biggest sources of crossword puzzles in the country. And I'm a crossword puzzle maker, and I know all the other crossword puzzle makers. We're a very tight-knit community, and we don't get paid a lot of money. We're lucky when we succeed with something, but we all love our craft, and we're pretty good at it. And the thing that we really like about it is we can make a thing, put it in a very small space, see our name on it when it comes out in a newspaper or magazine, and point to it and say, I did that, and everybody else does, and they go, that was really cool. That's a great thing, and makes us really happy. And we get a little bit of money for it, and that's great. What it turned out is that the folks over at 538, who have gotten to know a little better since this happened, published a story based on somebody I knew compared a crossword puzzle that he wrote to for another source to one that appeared in USA Today that looked almost identical. And so through data analysis from a guy out here in Seattle named Saul Pwanson, 538 figured out that the USA Today and UClick had been had been systematically plagiarizing the New York Times and other publications, including, most notably, itself. the bylines would appear under fictional names. The original contributors would not be credited or paid or anything like that, and it was really bad. They found thousands of serious discrepancies in individual crossword puzzles, and as far as we could tell, nothing happened. The USA Today kind of put it on the back burner, and lacking anything that they could do, 538 sort of let it go. And we went, wait a minute, there should be punishment for stealing people's stuff. So I went to my team and I said, look, we are we exist only because people know our names and love us for what we make. And that's a principle that we stand behind in the puzzle industry. So I think we should go up against USA Today and say, we're going to boycott your company. Now, as I said, we're a tiny little company, but we have a big voice, and it took off like wildfire all over the internet. And so one of the consequences of it was that we encouraged people to write into USA Today, and one person, a crossword puzzle champion named Dan Fair, got a got an email from USA Today saying the editor, Timothy Parker, was not employed at USA Today, and we were like, wait, what? And it turned out that they had, in fact, terminated his contract, and but Universal UClick was content with a 3-month suspension, and no one else in the puzzle world was. And so, yeah, we maintain our boycott against UClick. Well, that's fairly easy to maintain because we would never sell a puzzle to UClick. But having USA Today on your boycott list is terrifying. We exist because of good press of our games, and but we just had to do it, and people really supported us. Some fans were like, "Why are you in politics?" I'm like, "We're pretty political," but really, we just had to stand up for, a whole lot of little guys, including us.
Did you know Mr. Parker personally at any point? As you mentioned, it's a tight... Okay, yeah, so no, not at all. And at all. Even in this tight-knit group.
No, and in fact, very few people did. He wasn't a person who, as far as I know, had any interest in maintaining... I don't know. I shouldn't psychoanalyze him. I don't know him. But did not have strong friendships that I know of within the puzzle world. And was evidenced by the fact that people turned on him immediately. The editor of the New York Times, Will Shortz, was like, "This is criminal level plagiarism. Like, this is terrible," And there was nobody coming to his defense. No, I never met him, and I don't think I will at this point. I'm sure he doesn't like me at all. But
sounds like the feeling's mutual. So
I guess I like I said, to me it wasn't really about him, although it kind of was. It was more just like, you can't have big organizations say that plagiarism is okay, because then little organizations will do it too. And then by the end of that, creators are out on the street homeless. And that's just no good for anybody. So anyway, we did a thing, and it had a good result, and now we hope to not ever have to do that again, because that's no fun.
Yeah. I want to wrap up with another Chris Schreiber question, and he pointed to this list, and it's a video I'd encourage folks listening to this go check out themselves. The 100 games you absolutely positively must know how to play.
Yep.
He was asking about that, and he was curious, what kind of feedback have you gotten on that list? I'm sure a lot of folks with games that they felt belonged on it, but that was something you predicted clearly in the video. Yeah. But then also, additionally, now that the list has been out for a little while, any changes that you'd make now?
Sure. I vary on it all the time. I mean, I'm not sure that between the time I finished the PowerPoint and delivered the talk, I hadn't made like 5 changes between those two. There are definitely things that I was wrong about, but I did this a way that I think was the right way to do it, which is I polled the internet, and 250 friends of mine gave me their lists, and I sorted them, and then threw out all the dumb stuff, and just decided, all right, based on that, what did people talk about, and put in some of my own and all that. But yeah, there's some real sad losses on that list. I wish Hanabi was on that list. I wish War Machine was on that list. I wish some others. I'd love to see Kill Dr. Lucky on it. We just didn't have room. I mean, I tried to do every single type of game. And so, there's like 7 strategy board games on there, in some sense, right? So yeah, I mean, I think I could adjust it and such. But the reaction to the list qua list has been fantastic. People have done podcasts that are based around playing games that are on the list. The people have done web blogs. Amber Cook does one that's like, this is a game that I played because it was on the list. It's become widely known by people who don't know me at all, and highly critiqued, of course. Like, there are people who just look at it and go, this is ridiculous. Why would you ever make a list with, I'll give you an example. Obviously, I think it's a great game. A game like Flux, for example, is highly controversial. Or Werewolf is another one that's highly controversial in there because a lot of people, myself included, plain don't think that's all that much fun to play. But if you don't know how to play it, you are missing the core of game design of the last, 30 years. And so that's what I care about. It's not the best list. It's not the list of best games. It's not the list of most fun games. It's not the list of the most important games. It's the list of the games that create the corpus of what is game design knowledge, what is gameplay knowledge. And if you know those 100 games, if you really know them, you're really smart on the subject of what games are about. And as it turns out, since I made the list, I really know what I'm talking about.
It helps when you can make the rules, right? Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, like, it does turn out that there was one game on the list that I put on there that I had never played. And that's because I absolutely refused to have it on my phone. That game was Ingress. So I've never played Ingress, although I've seen many people play it, because I just don't want to turn every time I go somewhere into, wait, we have to turn this thing green, right? Now, of course, my wife has put Pokemon Go on her phone, so we do that every day.
So you got around to it indirectly.
Yeah, indirectly, right. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a good list. It was fun. If I were to do it again, it would be probably different, although most of it would still be the same. I mean, you're not knocking, I don't care what game you produce, you're not ever going to knock a game like Dungeons & Dragons off that list. You're never going to knock Ascension or Set or Magic the Gathering or Super Mario Brothers 3 or Plants vs. Zombies or anything like that. Like, those games are just like, this is what game design is. And so yeah, I'm very happy I did it. I managed to do it in an hour. It was crazy, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again.
I might lobby for Happy Salmon to make it on there in some form or fashion, just because it's Gamer Viagra.
It is the best game.
Yes.
We played it at Gen Con with 2 10-year-olds. And, so high five was actually low five for me, right? Like, straight down to high five someone. But it was super fun. I mean, we now, anytime anybody says Happy Salmon in the office, me and Gabby or me and Shane just do the little arm slapping motion, just because it's Happy Salmon, man.
That game is also a crazy seller. We were playing it the other night over at Empire Board Game Library here in Albuquerque, and
I've been there.
I know you have. I missed you when you were in town, but yeah, I know you've been to Empire. But anyway, they just started selling Happy Salmon, and in one night's worth of playing, they sold, I think, 5 copies.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just to different people who tried it. One person bought 2, so they could play with up to 12.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. It's oh god, but do you really want copies of the same color back? Oh well, whatever.
It's not that hard to sort out. I can testify, having played it 7 players. It's not that bad.
Sure, but yeah, it's good. It's like I said, most successful genre of all time, real-time salmon game.
All right, one last one before I let you go. One last one. And I ask this to every designer I have on. And it's really the tip that you would have for aspiring designers, which I think just about any gamer has had an idea for a game that they've either it's been half-baked or maybe it's gone further than that. Who knows? But advice you would have for either folks who really have aspirations of being a designer or someone who just wants to put together a fun game with their friends. Is there a kind of a piece of advice that you think kind of covers that group that you think could help them prove to be successful?
Well, I mean, I think those are 2 really different goals.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a ridiculous, stupid question.
Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. But,
how about we'll split it up for folks who want to do what you do, for folks who want to really get into that sphere and be a professional.
I think well, math class doesn't hurt. This is the thing I tell kids, right? They're like, oh my God, how can we be a game designer? I said, do you like math class? Would you like a lot of them? And they go, no. I'm like, well, this is kind of a math job. But no, the real thing I say to people is, it's kind of been a mantra of mine, which is be the person known for that thing. Whatever that thing is. Make something, do something that people are really excited about. They keep wanting to talk about. I mean, the discount salmon is a great example of this. Marcus Ross went around Gen Con in a giant salmon suit. And it was incredibly hot in Indianapolis, but he wore the salmon suit the whole convention to show off his game, Discount Salmon. And now everybody knows Marcus as Discount Salmon Guy. Now, I don't mean Marcus is a success because he dressed in a salmon suit. I'm saying that Marcus built something that, Marcus Selinker, built something that is a fantastic game that people remembered. And so with his new game, everybody's going, oh yeah, that's the Discount Salmon Guy, right? And so make something awesome and make sure people know about it. Those sound like they're really difficult things to do, but if you're not committed to both of those things, then, I mean, there's really no point if what you're trying to be is a professional at it, if you're trying to be, paid to do it. Now, the opposite question, the thing you embedded in the previous question, which is if you just want to make games to play with your friends, make as many games as you can. Like, make something fun that people want to play. And then, if you're having a good time with that, then take it over to some game publisher and say, I've been playing with this with my friends and they really like it. Do you really want it? Do you want to publish it? And they might, right? But you don't care. Like, you don't care if you're just interested in doing, making something fun and so forth. You're not trying to be a commercial success. You're just trying to say, I published this game. I really love it. It's not meant to take care of me for the rest of my life. And then I'll make another one. Great. Just do that. The world needs better games. And so, yeah, and you never know. Like, if you take that approach, if you take the approach of, well, I'm just going to make something fun and see what people say, there's a really good chance that things are going to turn out pretty good.
I think that's a perfect note to leave it on. Mike, thank you so much. Before we wrap things up, what's the best way for folks to reach you if they want to learn more about yourself, besides just straight up Google, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's how it works. You just check out my CV. It's online. No, just bring that around.
Nice.
No, at Mike Selinker on Twitter, Mike Selinker on Facebook. The Lone Shark Games site is loansharkgames.com. There's a Facebook page for Lone Shark. There's a Twitter account for Lone Shark. We have a Tumblr too. I have a Tumblr. Everybody tumbles. And so yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm at all the conventions. If you're going to PAX West, you will find me there. And I'm highly approachable, and telling me that one of my games is in your top 10 of all time is pretty much guaranteed to get me to stop and listen to you.
Excellent. Okay, that's a good tip for anyone out there looking for either game design advice, autographs, or just to have a chat with Mike Selinker. Mike, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, best to Shauna. I really enjoyed this, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.